class, welcome to your sunflower clay class. My name is Miss M, and in front of you, you should have your bowl, your wax paper, and with that wax paper, I actually crumpled it all around my bowl, like so. And I made sure that the middle part was pretty flat, touching the bottom of the bowl. So I went around, kind of scrunched all around my bowl. I'm just going to push down in the middle so there's no big air bubble in there. Also, be sure that you have your second wax paper on your table or desk. Your piece of clay, of course. Also, grab a cup of water and a pencil for cutting. If you do not have all those materials, you're welcome to push pause on the video and come back to it whenever you're ready. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is grab your piece of clay and tear it into two pieces, as much as you can get it to be even. So you want to kind of tear it in half, put one aside, and grab the other piece and kind of crunch it or scrunch it into a baseball shape. You could even use cupped hands like so, and just kind of go back and forth from one to the next with half of your clay and get a nice round shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. We just want to kind of get those air bubbles out of this piece. So half of the clay, scrunch it down and get it into a nice ball shape. It doesn't have to be perfectly round. We're going to squish it back to being flat here in just a moment. I'm going to put this piece of clay aside just so you can see more of this one. Perfect. Whenever you're done, go ahead and put your round clay piece on a piece of table, on the table, and just kind of use your palm as a way to flatten out and kind of spreading out this piece. So almost like a pizza, I'm gonna go in there and just push down with my palm, just kind of spread it out, going out. Kind of getting a nice thin pizza shape. There you go. It doesn't have to be a perfectly round pizza. I'm just kind of pushing out with my palm a little bit. So I'm just kind of forcing the clay out. I'll show you the thickness of my clay piece. You can kind of see how thick it is at this point. So again, using your palm, pushing down and out. Maybe making mine just a little bit thinner. With this clay, it's air dry clay, so it takes a little while to dry. And it's just decorative, which means you can't really eat or drink out of it. It's just there to be beautiful. Perfect. All right. Once you're done, you can use your finger and your water. Actually, I'm going to use two fingers. Two fingers in my water. I'm just going to smooth out any bubbles or rough areas. Get it just a little bit smoother. Like so. Once I'm done getting it pretty smooth, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I am going to use my pencil to cut long ways, like so. I want to get maybe like 5 or 6 pieces, maybe 7 or 8 if I'm lucky, for my petals for my flowers. So let me show you how. So I'm going to take my pencil. I'm just going to cut with my pencil. 1. And look at the thickness of each one, kind of like your ruler's width. 2. 3, and I'm going all the way through the clay. 3, 4, 5, 6. And you don't have to have as many as I do. Just be sure you have a good amount on there. And mine's kind of like an oval piece. If yours is more round, that's absolutely fine. We're going to kind of mess with them anyways. So I'm going to put this one aside. I'm going to grab a larger piece to start out with. I'm just going to grab it. And again, kind of look at the thickness of mine. a little bit thick, maybe even get a little bit thinner. Just a little bit, just pushing down, just kind of pinching it with your 2 fingers. And on one of the sides, it doesn't matter which one, I'm just going to break off a little bit of a piece. And then I'm going to pinch it like so, to kind of get a little bit pointier, like my sunflower. So I just kind of tore off a piece. Pinch it like so, to get a little bit of a pointier petal. And again, if you feel like you have any rough bumps, you can always use 1 or 2 of your fingers, not too much water, to get any cracks or bumps off. And again, I pinched the end of one of the sides, get it a little bit of a pointier area like a sunflower, like so. And then once I'm done with one, I'm gonna lay it out and almost have it pointing like it's pointing at the 12 o'clock and pushing it down on my plate. So there's my first petal. Put it aside. I'll grab another piece. I want to make sure it's pretty even to my other one, so maybe tearing off a little bit of this one. Put my pencil aside. And then I'm going to kind of use my 2 fingers again, squeeze one of the ends, make it a little bit pointy like my pointy sunflower petal. And I can use my finger or 2, dip it in the water and smooth it out, maybe make it a little bit more flat so it's not so thick. Get it, nice pointy petal. I think this one got a little bit too long, so in just a moment I will cut off some extra pieces. Okay, nice and smooth, almost like a hand on a clock. I'm going to get it pointy on one of the ends, like so. And take your time with these. If you want to pause the video and work on it a little bit more. I'm just going to use my finger, get it a little bit thinner, like so. And then let me bring this bowl back over so you can kind of see it a little bit better. And I'm going to make sure it kind of goes out as far as this one does. I want my petals to be pretty even on the outside. And then I'm going to take off this extra. It's still kind of overlapping, so it's kind of on top of the other one a little bit. But as you can see, it goes as far out as this one too. So it's the 12 o'clock. Now it's pointing at the 6 o'clock. And then I'm going to push down in the middle so the 2 kind of work together. And you could even use some water on your finger or fingers and push down on them so they kind of work together a little bit better. You can always go in there and kind of mess with these in here too. So the 12 and the 6 o'clock, I go back. I'm going to grab another strip. Always get that wax paper off. And then kind of see how long each one is. Take off a little extra piece. Put it aside. So all my extra pieces right here. Same thing. I'm going to pinch the end of one of the sides. Get it a little bit flatter, so it's not so thick. And then I'll use my finger and the water to kind of get out any bumps. So, and before we paint it, I am going to let it dry for 30 minutes. And then I'll go back on top of it to paint it. If you want to give it extra time, if you feel like once you are done with your clay, if it's still pretty shiny, you can give it an hour or 2. You can even let it sit overnight. It's absolutely up to you. Just be sure to give it at least 30 minutes so it's nice and dry. So there's my next piece, pointy. I'm just going to pinch it with my thumb and my pointy finger. And I'm going to bring over my plate, or my bowl again, excuse me. I'm going to set it where the 9 o'clock would be, so I'm pointing it to the left. And then I'm going to overlap it. I'm just going to take off some of that center piece, kind of in the middle, and I'll push down on it. And again, if you want to use a little bit of water on your fingers, just a little bit, push down on it, get it nice and flat. Kind of work it in there, you can. Perfect. All right, next piece. Grab the next piece, maybe pinch off a little bit. I'm going to pinch off just a little bit. Use my pointy and my thumb to pinch. Push down to get a little bit flatter. Can use my fingers. Can use my pointy and my middle finger to kind of wet it down. Get it nice and smooth. And bring it on over. And then I'm going to line it up. Be sure that it goes out about the same as the other ones. Tear it off kind of in the middle. Then push it down. Like so. Alright. Perfect. And now I'm going to start kind of overlapping them in these empty spaces. So I'll do the same thing. Grab another piece. And your wax paper is going to most likely tear apart, but that's okay. You can always kind of find some pieces that are still usable to lay your clay on. So I grabbed another piece of clay, made sure get a good amount, maybe tear off that much. Flatten it out. Get it to a nice point. Kind of go back and forth between flattening it out and getting it to a nice point. Doesn't really matter which one's first. And then using my 2 fingers to get it nice and smooth. And then I'm going to find an area between the two and overlap them. So I went between that petal and that petal. I'm going to take off any extra. Push down in the middle. Get it nice and flat. Continue on. Oops, sorry. You probably don't want to lay your bowl on top of your clay. I just want to make sure you guys see it well. If you want to kind of keep your clay off to the side or your bowl off to the side when you do that. So there's my next petal. Kind of looks like a starfish. All right. And now I have all these pieces. Once you kind of have all the pieces, you can kind of start getting them together and adding one to the next and just kind of pushing down on them, making sure both sides are kind of connected, and then kind of rework it again. So I grabbed 2 pieces, pushed down with my thumb, made sure they look nice and sturdy, and then I'm going to make sure I have enough of this one, pinch off any extra. Oops, excuse me. Same idea again. Use my 2 fingers to flatten it out. Get it to a nice point, and I'll go between 2 petals again and push down in the center. And this clay you will not put in the oven. It's just going to naturally dry. So be sure that you do not put air dry clay in the oven. It's just a decorative piece, so you're not going to be cooking it so you can't eat or drink from it. But you can put like jewelry stuff in it if you want. But again, you don't really want to move around the piece too much. It is really delicate. All right, let me bring my sunflower over. Make sure it's kind of going out the same distance as my other one. I'm going to tear off a little closer to the middle. Push down. I'm going to have this Y shape now. Perfect. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to grab some more scraps. And if you don't have any more scraps, you can grab some more of the other piece. Be sure just to kind of take a chunk, because we are going to use a piece for the center, and you can flatten this out again like a pizza, how we did before, and make some horizontal lines going side to side and keep making your petals. But be sure you put a little bit aside for the center. But I do have some more, so I'm going to keep using these scraps that I have for more petals. So I'm going to kind of take these. And maybe even make it a little bit more sturdy and thicken it out. And keep on adding the pieces on top to make it pretty sturdy. And don't forget to roll that other one in a ball first, so you get all those air bubbles out before you flatten it out. So make it into a ball, flatten it out like a pizza. Make sure it's nice and smooth, and then you can cut your petals out. All right. See the size of this one. Oh, the length of this one. And that water helps a lot to kind of smooth out your clay. Make sure the other side is kind of smooth too. Come over here, lay it up. Oh, that one got kind of bumpy. Line it up in the center. Cut off extra, maybe a little bit off to the side, so my center is not getting too heavy. Push down. Between the two petals, I laid this one down. Make sure everything looks nice and smooth. It's kind of working together. Perfect, and then in just a moment I'll add another petal between these two. Get some of these scraps. Maybe flatten it out a little bit. My palm. Those to combine a little better. Use my pencil to cut off the extra sides of this one. You don't have to worry too much about the back because you won't really see it, but if you feel like there's big bumps like this, you can kind of get in there. I'm going to lay it out. So between these two petals where there's all that space left, lay out this last petal. Be sure it kind of goes out evenly to the other ones. Tear off extra. There's still a little bit. Don't push down on it. That's it. Okay. Then we'll kind of go in there and do some fillers between these two areas too. Perfect. So cute. Like that. So let me go ahead and grab all my scraps. I am going to take that ball that I kind of tore off, about that size, a good big rock size. Put it to the side because that will be the center. I'm going to grab this extra that I have with the other extra pieces that I had and just kind of curl it up into a ball. Remember that kind of baseball idea we had before. And at the end, if you have any extra clay, you're welcome to use it as you will. Go back and forth like a baseball. Get out all those air bubbles. Do this for about a minute or so. I'm going to flatten it out by using my palm, kind of pushing out. Mine's coming out more of an oval shape again. You can have more circular shape, whatever kind of works best for you whenever you get it all smushed. I can use my fingers to kind of get out any bumps. And I'm going to go in there and slice horizontally again, side to side, left to right. Grab that piece, about a ruler's width. That one's kind of a mini piece, huh? Oh, all right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. That's a good place to start. Let me grab one of the ones more the center. Ooh. This one's stuck to my desk. I'm gonna flatten these two together. Get some of that wax paper off. Comes off pretty easily. Gonna smush it down, bring it to a point. Again, kind of using my pointy finger and my thumb to kind of bring it to a nice point. Smooth it out. Use water. So we have those 8 petals down already. We did those first 4 and then we did the other 4. These are fillers, so if you feel like you don't need, that many, just be sure you have a good amount of petals. You can have 12 petals total if you feel like you want to have 14 or 15, but you want a nice full flower. So be sure there's not too much spacing between each one. And I'll bring this back over. And I'm gonna find a nice area between 2 petals. Just kind of smush down. Make that work in there. So between the 2 petals, I've put another one. You can kind of start filling in between 2 petals too. Just be sure you don't put any more over here because it's nice and full. It's gonna pretty much look like a sun, a nice full sun. All right, I'm gonna grab another piece. paper too, not a big deal. I'm going to kind of pinch off some extra areas. I think that was too long. I'm going to flatten it out. So same idea, going in there and filling up your flower with more petals. Bringing it to a point. I'm going to go in there and find a nice empty space. Between these two, push it down in the center. I don't want the center to be too thick, so I'm just going to push down on it, so later on it's easier to lift up. So slowly but surely our sunflower is coming together so cutely. Let's get another piece. Tear off some of the extra pieces, get it a little bit more flat so it's not so thick. Because if it's too heavy, it'll be hard to pick up from our bowl. And that bowl is just helping us shape our bowl. Bring it on over. I'm going to kind of avoid the middle for a little bit, so I just don't want to put too much in there so it doesn't get too heavy in the middle. So I'm just going to cut off my petal a little bit more on the outer side of where I'm going to put my circle later. So just cut it off right here, and then brought in just a little bit so it's sticking to the rest of the petals. All right, let's keep going. You can always go back and kind of smooth it out while your clay is still wet. Okay. Let's grab another petal. This one's really thick, so I'm going to cut pieces, maybe smush it down a little bit. Use my thumb and my pointy finger. And another space between a couple of petals, maybe this area. I'm going to come out a little bit more so I don't add too much more to the center. So it's not too heavy. And then I'm just going to push down on here like so. It's going to bring it in so it all kind of connects a little better. Let's grab some of these scrappy pieces. Join them together. I'm going to use my palm to flatten these out together a little bit better. Maybe on both sides. too thin, so I'm going to keep on kind of layering it so it's a little bit thicker. Get those air bubbles out. Nice and pointy. The sides are a little clean. Like so. Alright, on to the next spot. I think this spot. And again, I don't want to add too much more weight in the middle, so I'm just going to pinch it off right here. Grab this, and I'm just going to work this in there a little more. Pushing it in there. Make sure the rest is nice and smooth. I think I definitely want one more here. Once I add that one, let me see if I want to add any more after that. So I'm going to do one more, kind of check out my sunflower and see if I want to add any more after that. All right. Should get all that wax paper that might come off on there. It comes off really easily, which is nice. I never want to put too much water on there. It's going to take forever to dry. It becomes too slippery. And if you are not all done with your petals, once I'm done with my last one, you are welcome to pause the video. I'm just going to continue on. Be sure not to add too much more clay to the center so it's not too heavy. Be sure everything looks nice and smooth before you add your centerpiece in just a moment. Alright, and then I'm going to go in there and I think this little area right here, I'm going to add my last petal to. And just kind of break some off, not too much in the center of my flower. I'm going to break off all this extra clay right here. And then I'll just kind of push it into the center a little bit more. Have a nice full sunflower. Let's see what I want to do. Maybe one more right here. I want to go for it. Add one more. So I can look at it, my sunflower, and see that this spot definitely needs some more love over here. So I'll add another petal right there. Add another one on top of another one. You don't want it to be too thin because then it won't be too sturdy. So be sure that if it feels flimsy, just kind of layer it, add another layer on top. I just kind of fold mine over and make sure all those bubbles are out. Feel like if it feels floppy, you want to add another layer of clay so you have good control. It doesn't get too loose when you're trying to form it. Make it nice and smooth. Way around. Get your fingers appointed. Alright. Place it, make sure the outer edge is pretty even with the other ones. Have some right there. And work your way in. Excellent. Cute. I like that much, much better. If I wanted to, maybe one more right there, but I think this looks nice and full. Maybe I'll move this one just a little bit over. But make sure you have a nice, full sunflower. It's nice and flat in the middle for where you're going to put your center of your flower in just a moment. All your petals look nice and clean. If you want to go back and add some more water to your fingers, smooth it out. Don't get it too wet. Be sure that all the outside points of your petals are nicely pointy. So you can always go back and pinch them a little bit with your finger, just a little bit, to make sure you have those nice pointy outsides. Perfect. Move that one over. Make sure that they're all kind of working and sticking together. All right, once you're done, you can kind of put away most of your scraps. Remember, you are wanting to get that one. It's kind of a size of a rock. It's a good rock shape, or good small rock. All right, about that size. Again, I'm going to kind of go back and forth, make it into kind of a ball shape first, and then we're going to do the whole pizza thing again. And now we really want to have a nice circle for the center of my flower. So I'm going to come over here, look at the size of my circle, and be sure whenever I cut it out, it'll lay nicely from one end to the next in the center. So I have a ball shape. I'm going to use my palm to push down on it. Again, now I really definitely want to have more of a round pizza. And a good size for the center of my flower. Use my pencil to cut it and do my best to get a nice circle shape cut out. I just went around, went all the way through. I'm going to kind of size it up first and see if it's a good size. Yeah, that's a good size for my flower. And I'm going to use the side of, kind of like my palm, and I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. Make sure it's nice and clean on the outsides by just kind of using the roundness of my palm. Not too thick of a center. You don't want it to be too heavy. Push down on it. Good circle shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but again, use your palm. Push down. You can even use your fingers. Nice round shape. Be sure it looks like it fits well. This side I'm going to use just a little bit of water. And I'm going to do something called scoring and slipping with these two pieces, which means in the center of my sunflower, I'm going to make some diagonal lines going this way. So kind of coming down to the right. So I'm going to use my pencil. I made 4 lines coming down to the right. And then on my circle piece, I'm going to have them kind of going the opposite direction. So I'm going to kind of have them going up and to the right. And I'm going to make about 4 lines. So this one's going down to the right, and this is going up to the right. So I'm scoring, I'm making some lines in there, and then I'm slipping, which means I'm going to add some water on this bottom part. And this is going to help the two pieces grasp together a little bit more, so it's going to help them link up together. So I'm going to add some water, maybe a little bit on this one too. I'm just going to lay it on top and push down. So scoring and slipping. Make sure the outside edges look good. Push down a little bit so it kind of sits in there a little bit better. Push out. Make sure you have a nice round circle, like so. Oops, sorry about that. And then I can use my pencil also to poke some holes in the center of my sunflower So I'm just going to take my pencil once I have the center of it done exactly how I want it. Make sure there's no clay on it. And then all I'm going to do is just a little bit of a poke with my pencil, add some holes. And again, before I start painting it, I'm going to let it dry. I'm going to let mine dry for about 30 to 40 minutes. And I'll go back and paint it. So if you want to put a little pause on this video and then come back to it, your clay piece in just a bit to paint it, and also to remove it from our plate first, and then our bowl first, and then paint it. So give it some about at least 30 minutes to dry, and I will come back with you, and we'll continue on and finish off painting our flower. All right, artists. All right, artists. Part 2 of our sunflower clay creation. So once you have given your sunflower some time to dry, be sure to grab a nice clean cup of water, a paper towel. You can now use your brush. Also be sure that you have your yellow, brown, and black paint next to you. Once you've given it at least 30 minutes to dry, then you can very carefully remove your sunflower from the bowl and just gonna lay your wax paper nice and flat. And if some of your petals are kind of coming down, you might need some more time for it to dry. Be very careful. You can slowly start putting the outside areas nice and flat of your wax paper. Perfect. And I'm just going to connect some of the ones by pinching them together with my thumb. Like so. So you have a nice, beautiful bowl. Again, give it at least 30 minutes to dry. Once you're done, you don't even have to really wet your brush at this point. You can grab your big brush and just dip it into the yellow and paint all of your petals yellow. I'm not going to really worry about the back part of my petals. I just want to kind of get the front area. And if you feel like, and it's okay if you get some on the centerpiece, you can just wipe it off very carefully. And if you feel like once you painted all your petals yellow once and you can still see a lot of the gray from your clay, go back and give it a second coat, which means you're going to go back and give it another coat of paint. And I always like to kind of hold behind it and just kind of give it a little bit more stability. But be sure you gave your clay at least 30 minutes to dry, if not an hour or 24 hours. And I'm just kind of painting along all around, making sure my petals are completely painted. And again, it's okay if I get some in the center. That center is going to be brown and black, so don't worry too much about it. You can wipe off any extra. My clay, I did not let dry for 30 minutes just because I was moving along our video, so you can see mine's still a little bit wet and moving. But yours should be definitely more dry than mine and not moving around as much. So all the petals, go back. If they are falling, you can always kind of go back and kind of pinch them together a little bit better so they hold a little bit better. Go all the way around. Again, I would definitely go back and give mine another coat. Once you are done with all of your yellow petals, go back if you want and see if you want a second coat or a third coat, and then you can paint the center brown and black in just a moment. I'm just kind of lifting the back of mine up. If your petals are moving too much, you might just want to give your clay some more time to dry. So mine, I didn't give that full 30 minutes just so I could show you the next step. But I'm kind of giving mine a little bit of sturdiness by holding him up. So the weight of me pushing him down doesn't fold him back too much. And if you can see any gray, go back and kind of cover it. I always say those are the naked pieces. You want to cover up those naked pieces with some paint. Be sure you don't see any gray peeking through. Go all the way around. I would suggest 2 coats if you want your yellow to be brighter and see less of the gray. If you get some on that centerpiece, it's absolutely fine because it's going to be kind of like that brown black color anyway, so It'll cover up any yellow that you get on there. I'm just kind of painting them in up and down motion, kind of like the rays of the sun. Like so, and I'm going to kind of get closer in here. You can even go side to side this way if it's hard to get into those little areas, and then just kind of paint out. Just kind of painting out like the rays of the sun. Get the sides if you can see the gray from the clay. So any piece that you can see on the petals that's still gray, that's what you want to cover. Don't worry about the back of your bowl just yet. So once you do have all the front area painted in yellow, if you do decide to, you can paint underneath too, so all the area underneath if you don't want to see any of the gray peeking through. But that's up to you. That's artist's choice. You definitely want to make sure you don't see any of the gray poking through on the top. And again, I would definitely paint it once, let it dry for like 5 minutes, and then go back and get any area that is still peeking some gray. Pinch some of these petals together a little bit better. Sorry, mine's still a little bit wet. All right. So once I went back, again, I would definitely do 2 or 3 coats and touch mine up with my yellow. Be sure any of the yellow that's touching in here is nice and dry or wiped off. Because if the yellow does mix with the brown and black, it might change your color a little bit. So maybe give it a couple of minutes to dry, or wipe some off if you can. And then you can wash and dry your large brush. And if you're still working on the petals, which you probably are at this point, you're welcome to pause the video before you move on to painting the center. So again, I would definitely go back and give this 2 or 3 coats. Then I would wash and dry my brush. I'm going to add brown and a dot of black. So just a little bit of black goes a long way. So brown, dip my big brush in my brown, and a dot of black. And then I'm just going to be kind of jumping around more in the center. So brown, dot of black, and then just kind of jump around more to kind of give the center a little bit texture. Maybe a little bit more black on mine. Again, be sure you're staying away from the yellow petals. If you accidentally get some on the yellow petals, try to wipe some off with your paper towel, but be very careful. Get all that brown piece. Just going to jump in with my brush. And this one's kind of wobbly, so I'm going to pinch them together a little bit more. Perfect. There you go. You can wash and dry your brush. If you feel like your bowl needs some more time to kind of sit in that bowl shape, you can always just very carefully, be sure the back part is dry. You can always very carefully just bring your wax paper back, lift up and carry in, and just let it dry more on the plate too. I think that's what I'm going to do to mine. I feel like since I didn't give mine the full 30 minutes to dry, I'm going to go back and kind of set it in there and give it a good 24 hours to dry before I go back and use my beautiful sunflower bowl. Go back and kind of touch mine up a little bit. But yes, be sure that it's painted really well. You don't want to go too fast on this part. 2, 3 coats. If you want to go back to the center too, be sure you don't have any naked gray areas showing. Be careful. Always remember that if a wet color touches another wet color, they are going to mix. So if you don't want your yellow and brown and black to mix, let one dry so it can sit on top of the other color versus blending or mixing with the other color. And definitely 3 coats will help it. I'm going to get rid of all these bumps too that I have. And smooth it out a little bit more. So if you have big thick pieces of yellow, you can always flatten them out with your brush. As well. Go back and kind of touch it up before I let it sit and dry. Mine was still too wet, so this definitely helps it sit a little bit better too. Be sure the back is dry if you've decided to paint the back of it before you put it back in the bowl. So cute. All right, artists, great job on your sunflower clay bowl. That was so much fun. Be sure to give it some time to dry. And remember, it's just decorative, so you can place fun things in your bowl, but be sure not to drink or eat out of your sunflower bowl. And I hope you have a great, sunny, beautiful day. Love, Young at Art.